Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I wanted to share with you my impressions and criticisms of Modern Warfare 3. The gameplay is not mine, but it's J-Hub's because the gaming PC that you saw me stream on, I literally set up yesterday, I forgot to change the default settings, and all of my footage is in a glorious 720p 30. Thankfully, J-Hub had me spotted. This is going to be kind of like a mini good, bad, and ugly episode, but much shorter given the lesser playtime. And let's start out with the good. I think the changes to player mobility have been largely positive. I've always enjoyed faster-paced games, scoot-and-shoot type games, and this is definitely one of those. Most importantly, it gives me new ways to engage on old maps. I really enjoyed some of the new parkour options, some of the ways to jump across lanes. It made old maps feel new again in a very good way. And more importantly, my soldier never really felt clunky at any particular time. I didn't feel like I was wading through sand or bogged down or waiting on the animation to do something. It was all pretty responsive. So all the changes to weapon reload, slide canceling, climbing, dolphin diving, sliding, etc. all kind of worked for me. And I also kind of liked the overall increased player health. It felt pretty good most of the time. We do got to talk about it in a little bit in the bad section in regards to connections. And what I liked most about it is I didn't feel punished for being very slightly out of position, because Call of Duty is not Counter-Strike, and when the time to kill is too fast, I feel like I get brutalized, like I die instantly. I don't even have a time to react to incoming fire, but with the bigger health bar, I have an opportunity to do that. I do really like what they did with tactical ADS. You probably saw me playing a lot with that on the stream. I think it was really clever and poorly implemented, so while I really like the idea, I think it needs a lot of polish, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the bad section. Choosing your perks based on the equipment is very logical and seems to work well, no complaints there. Weapon balance was very reasonable for a beta, and most of the weapons handled well and had a lot less visual shake compared to Modern Warfare 2. That might be less realistic, because in the real life your gun does shake and there are gas ejections and stuff, but in a game it can be frustrating to play with, so going a little bit more arcadey made it feel much better, and that's really what this feels like, is a more arcadey MW2, but I'm there for that. I really like those type of games. That's why I like Treyarch games quite a lot. Graphically speaking, the game is not that different than Modern Warfare 19 or Modern Warfare 2, in that it's a pretty good-looking Call of Duty game. Still a Call of Duty game, so the graphics are going to be simpler than that of most games, but since we're using the same engine and a lot of the same assets and tech, it felt a lot better optimized this time around, at least for Call of Duty. So I think performance is going to be where it needs to be, even if it's not the most graphically complex thing. One part of the sound design that's pleasant is the part where the guns aren't obscenely loud and the bombs don't make you deaf. MW19 and MW2, they went for these very realistic sounds, so every time I shot, I felt like I was going deaf in my headsets. The sound design is more arcadey, more Treyarch-like, but I really like that because it allows me to hear the environment around me, which I really need because we're about to be talking about some footsteps soon. So that was my good. Let's move down to the bad. And I think the biggest bad thing about this game isn't a technical merit like the gun balance or the graphics or something like that, but the reality that this truly is an incremental upgrade to Modern Warfare 2. If Modern Warfare 2 was supposed to be a 2-year game that didn't sell well enough, or Activision had other plans and needed money, then this was almost certainly supposed to be the big year 1 update. This was supposed to be like that big mid-season update you would get in other games where you would get new characters and maps and a big balance overhaul or something like that. And I'm pretty sure a big chunk of this game is exactly that. But I'll say if you didn't play Modern Warfare 2, if it didn't float your goat and you didn't really like it, you'll be pleasantly surprised by this game. However, if you did play Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 probably won't be different enough for you to justify the price tag. It'll probably feel like more of the same, or you'll feel like you're paying for a patch, which I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy with. And you can probably blame Activision for this one. It's almost certainly their fault for forcing devs to rush things once again. I think Treyarch was supposed to be up next, and they're still developing this game. That's not secret info on my end. That's just what I am assuming happened. And I do think that Modern Warfare 3 is going to be a big microtransaction farm for whales. They're already showing off the microtransactions in the trailer, which, while I think most of them look good, is a little bit concerning. Now we're going to hit a section where we talk about connections. The connections in the beta were not very good, and they led to a lot of wildly inconsistent gunfights. I don't know if that's because the servers were rough, I don't know if it's because it's a beta or bandwidth sharing, and I do believe that the higher health contributes to this problem as well, and this is especially noticeable in the submachine gun category. The multipliers for headshots were not very high. However, there were, subjectively, according to my feels and not to scientific testing, it felt like there were pretty big penalties for shooting legs and arms. So when SMGs are kicking a lot and you're getting your shots long range and they're not dealing a lot of damage and people have a lot of health, and also the connection bar is kind of going up and down and a lot of PC players are getting packet loss, you can get some wildly inconsistent gunfights that do not feel very good and do not feel very fun. I think the gunfights all work pretty well in close quarters combat. The rifle fights work pretty well at long range. And when the connection is good, it's overall a lot better. But I did feel cheated more times than I should in this game in gunfights because I land a bunch of shots and then I would still die pretty quickly. That's been a Call of Duty problem for like 10 years now, but it really stood out to me in this particular game. I probably should have talked about this more in the good section, so we're a little bit out of order here, but I do like the updated new maps. I say new maps, they're old maps that you can parkour on. They navigate well. For the most part, they look really good. They play really well, with one key exception. Spawns are still hot dog water. I don't know why. I don't know why we can't get this right after like 20 years of COD. Spawns are still rough in this game. I have a feeling that might be a feature. Like, it just never seems to get fixed. I had a lot of spawn and die moments, a lot of killing people off the spawn, a lot of spawn flips, a lot of goofy spawns, spawn on top of grenades, stuff like that. That really hasn't changed. Whatever algorithm that they used to control spawns did not work very well. And I mentioned tactical ADS in the good section. I really liked it. As a guy who does a lot of hipfire work and plays a lot of shoot and scoot games, I liked not having to fully ADS, but just doing the high ready position, keeping the mobility and being able to hipfire people, but with a much tighter hipfire. However, I believe it's only useful on a handful of niche weapons. I think it's probably only useful on really long-range rifles that aren't going to work well in close quarters, so you can do high ready and use them a little bit more effectively. And I have not tested this very thoroughly yet, but I did get really good results on using them on the full auto secondary weapons, because the secondary weapons you pull out when you're already panicking, when people are in your face, when you need to spam something. So having that high ready with the mobility and the tighter hipfire works really well on those in my very limited testing. Got a lot more to do there. However, the keybinds for it on console are awful. It's pretty easy to toggle on PC. I think it's the same as the melee button, which I bound to the mouse. But on PlayStation, it's so awkward and so goofy. I saw almost no console gamers using it, which is a little bit of a shame. And I looked through the settings and I didn't see this option. And if anybody from Sledgehammer is listening, there should be an option to make high ready the default ADS position for secondary weapons if you want as a toggle on, definitely not on by default. And it would be really nice if you could do it per weapon, because a handful of the weapons, even the LMGs and long rifles, do perform better in close quarters combat scenario in high ready than they do in full ADS. But there's no option that I saw to enable this on a by weapon basis. So what I found myself doing is I would spawn, break out my secondary ADS, toggle to tac, and then swap back so that the next time I needed to use it, I could pull it out and it was kind of already how I wanted it. I really like this feature. I really don't think it's implemented very well at all, and I think that not many people are going to be using it. We do have an old school Call of Duty problem of teammates' footsteps louder than enemy footsteps. I don't know why that's the case. That's always the case. My teammates are walking around in moon shoes or pots and pans, and the enemies are audible in this game, but not as much as teammates. I found myself hunting down teammates more than once. Now in the back end of the video, let's talk about the ugly stuff. The game has wildly inconsistent lighting and smoke effects from map to map, almost as if entirely different teams were making them. Some maps are bright and colorful and I can see enemies pretty easily. Other ones have a lot of visual smoke and haze and sand and a lot of dark corners for dark corner McDougal's to hide in. I don't know why, but I definitely had a very inconsistent feel tracking enemies from map to map. I think that there are extreme differences in weapon kitting and attachments, which is very normal for Sledgehammer. Some people love that. It adds game diversity, but it also makes me feel like if I don't level these guns up to get the good attachments, I'm really playing with a vastly inferior version of the weapon. I think Battle Rage is trash. That should not be in a game like this. We don't need extra health. We don't need like fast regen kind of stuff. Battle Rage makes you somewhat immune to tacticals and stuff like that too. Very frustrating. Just one of a couple of things that probably needs to be removed from the game. There are some interesting tacticals and equipment that capture objectives for you and do different things that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I gotta wait to see how they're used before I get to accusing them of being abused. And on the topic of connections, which we had in the bad, The faster mobility in this game does not get along well with Call of Duty's lag comp system. I'm sure you've seen, especially in the pro scene and the Warzone scene, how people slide around and use the slight offset and delay in the predictive lag system and the camera angles to really almost time travel and move around and kill people, and the people they're killing don't have a really good way to track them or even land shots on the target in a way that the server likes. So faster mobility, while I like, is going to make these close quarter combats where these movement gods slide around a lot weirder, and I think that's going to make people really mad. Finally, in the bad section, something very simple, or this is the ugly section. There's a little bit too much nostalgia going on. When I'm playing this game, I feel like I'm playing Modern Warfare 3 remastered or remade and not a new game. I get that they wanted to show the cool, popular, fan favorite maps first, and that's nice, but I want to see something new, and I didn't see a lot of new in terms of map or weapon variety. It's a lot of the same old stuff, so I was a little bit disappointed there. However, moving back to the beginning, I will say that my overall experience was very positive. I liked a lot of the changes, it felt good, and I'll say that the base DNA of this game feels right. This feels like somebody wanted to make a fun game and didn't care about realism or rules, and they worked really hard to just kind of give the fan base a lot of the things that they wanted. However, it needs some balancing passes, it needs some work on spawns, it needs a little lighting adjustment here and there, and some quality of life settings. I think the game still needs work, which is concerning given that it's probably coming out in a month or so and probably not going to have time to do that much work. But the core game feels quite fun to me. The way you move, the way you shoot, the way most of the gunfights work, the way most of the maps navigate and look, very fun. I'm not going to get it, but I feel like they just need more time. They just need 3 or 4 months to polish this up and it'll be ready to go. So I guess maybe January or February after the first big patch, it'll be a really solid Call of Duty game. Well guys, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.